Hi, it's Jared from Strong Roots Farm. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about a controversial subject. Do your cattle need shade? Well, I'm going to start an argument with this, and it's a good argument to have because we're going to learn from it. The short answer is yes, if that's all you need. But stick around, we're going to talk about it. I'll take you through all of it. Thanks for joining us. If this is your first video, please like and subscribe, follow along with us as we talk about today, do your cattle need shade? As we get into this subject, there is going to be two sides of this spectrum, okay, that we're going to talk about. One side is going to say that you are not a very good farmer if you think your cattle need shade and that the cows should work for you, you shouldn't work for them. You should have cattle that is, tempered to your specific climate. If your cows cannot handle the heat or the sun, you have the wrong kind of cattle. So that is one side of the spectrum. The other side of the spectrum is here to say, we love our cattle, we're treating our cattle a certain way, we need our cows to have shade, we have a shade structure, you need to do this and this and this, and if you don't, you're wrong. So that is the spectrum. There is one topic that lies throughout this, and that is talking about humanely raised. So I'm going to take that off the table today. We are not talking about, are we humanely raising our cattle? So if you're a person that doesn't have any shade for your cattle, or you're a person that pampers your cattle and always has shade, you both can raise them humanely in either scenario. I want to make that clear. All right, let's get to it. So I want to talk about the low end of the spectrum, or the left side, whatever side, however you want to look at that. The people who say you don't have the right cattle if your cattle need shade. So in Ohio, right, this is where I'm at, we go anywhere from, I've seen -8 and I've seen 110, but standard range of temperatures, 0 in the winter for a week and 100 in the summer for a week. That's kind of my standard range of temperature here. My rule of thumb as a farmer is to be a steward of my cattle. I'm supposed to be a steward of the land as a farmer, as a homesteader, and I'm supposed to be a steward of my cattle. They've been blessed to me by God, whatever you want to think there. God has blessed me with this land. This is the way we live. I'm supposed to take care of them, okay? That is my job. Typically, that happens in the lower and the upper 20% of your temperatures. That's the way I look at it. So when it falls below 20, I have responsibilities. And you've seen some of these videos if you followed along on my channel. How do you keep water from freezing? Do you need a barn? Do you need a windbreak? We prepare for our animals in low, bad, inclement weather. And we do the same thing on the upper 20%. So from 80 to 100 degrees, we do certain things for our cattle a little differently than the rest of the time of the year. So whether that's we provide shade, I'll tell you one technique that I use is I use a smaller watering trough. So I only use a 75 gallon. I have some 150s and some 300s that we'll use periodically. But in the heat of the summer, I stick with the smaller ones because as they drink, the hose turns the water over quicker. It's coming up out of the ground, so it's colder. Just gives them some nice, cool water. You always need clean drinking water. You always need a clean, good source of water. But I like for it to be cooler in the summer. So that's kind of where I lie with this in my practices. But as we talk about the one side of the spectrum that is going to say cattle are adapted to their environment, they do not need you, or you have the wrong cattle, let's talk about that scenario. As we look at this scenario, I will agree with these guys when they say cattle do not need shade to survive. And that's exactly right. My cows, my cattle, on this farm, I could have 0 shade structure, 0 trees, and they would get by. They would survive. They have adapted enough. I have cattle that are from my area, and I have cattle that are well adapted to our grasses and other things. So if you take a Highland cow, cattle, whatever, from up in Wisconsin and you put them in Arizona or Texas, you may have issues. Those cattle are not designed for that area. They're not adapted to that area. But let's just say everybody has cattle that are adapted to their area. Will the cattle survive without shade? Yes, 100%. They will survive. My problem with these arguments, not is it unsafe, not is it unhumane, but I don't want my cattle to survive. I want them to thrive. And that word thrive can be very different for lots of different people here. When I say I want my cattle to thrive, it does not mean I'm treating them better than somebody who doesn't provide shade. It doesn't mean that they are healthier because I provide shade and the other person doesn't. What I mean thrive is continue to have significant daily gains. So we sell meat. That is our goal. We sell healthy, grass-raised meat, grass-raised meat, fed meat, 100% grass-fed off of this farm. And I need them to continue to have that 2.5 to 3 pounds. We average around 2.6, just so you're aware, daily gains. It is hard to do it in the winter when they don't have good forage. It is hard to do it in the summer when they want to lay like that and not go out and eat when it's super hot. Now, to give you the background on the weather, it has not stopped raining for months until this week. And we literally went from mid-60s to 95 in 1 week. Welcome to Ohio, or the Midwest, as everybody complains about their weather. It is a heat wave right now. 95 is a significant temperature in Ohio. We have significant rainfall. We have good grasses here in the Midwest. And 95 is hot for us. It rarely gets above 100, so this is an abnormal temperature. The news calls it a heat wave. They're talking to people about when they're driving. They're talking about staying hydrated. Keep your kids inside during the day, which we don't do. Our kids are adapted to the weather as well. You can tell I have changed my hat to a wider brim hat. Not a cowboy. I'm not really a fisherman, but I guess this is a boonie cap. Keep the sun off my ears. I'm also wearing long sleeves. This is a hot weather shirt. I'm getting ready to go do some bush hogging. I don't do so well with blisters and sunburns. I don't like chemical sunscreens. Whatever you want to think there, I wear these shirts. I'll put them down in the link. So if you're looking for a cheap shirt, I found these on Amazon. They keep me cool and they keep the sun off me. They're an SPF shirt. Same thing. I'm adapting because of the hot weather. So I adapt for my cattle by providing shade. Now, I will take you through a few different ways that you can accomplish this here in a minute. I'll show you some different things to apply to your farm. But I'll tell you there are pros and cons to providing shade. If you have a Silvo style structure like this, and I really like this setup, I didn't build it. It was built before I came, but this is how I would do it, kind of, where I have 4 or 5 passes with a bush hog from my woods to my fence, and I can fence this off as a silvo pasture area. The forage isn't as good in this area, but it does have good forage. I've left enough room to have good forage all the way around these wooded areas that we have here on the farm. The pro is that in the shade, they're more likely to eat more. So when their bodies are cooler, the cattle will eat more and they won't burn as many calories per se. And I guess that's something I don't know. I need your help with that comment. Is it still a calorie if it's cattle? So a calorie is a unit of measure of energy. They're a ruminant. They get energy from the grass. Is it still calories? Let me know. I don't know. But the same principle applies. They don't eat as much and they burn energy to stay cool. So therefore they're not gaining as much per day. And our goal is to gain healthy meat for us to eat later. So with shade, the pro is that they're going to gain more, but the con is that they will stay in the shade. So that land will be harsher, more footprints, more weight, higher compaction, all the things that come with over pounding one specific area. They will lay there. Some people will say that if you offer your cattle shade, they're just going to lay in it and not go eat. Some people will say if you just left them in the sun, they would stay in the sun and they would just go ahead and start eating. I haven't found that to be true. I see them eating for more hours a day when they can chew their cud in the shade and cool their bodies in the shade. Now, I have never done a weighted analysis on poundage per day that they ate, so that's probably more of a university study versus weighing out paddocks and saying, if I left them in hot sun, how many pounds would they eat? But then you're calculating also in how many calories or pounds of grass did they eat, did they burn, keeping themselves cool. So my advice is or my viewpoint is that they'll eat better, they'll gain better, and that I have tested, if they are in the shade, if they have shade to go to. And then there's two types of shade we have here on our farm. Let's look at those, and then I'll come back and talk to you about each one. And then I'm also going to show you some of the other cons as we go through these. So the first type of shade you've already seen, our silvo-ish style of pastures. We actually just have woods that we're allowing them to graze into. I've started thinning them a little bit, creating more of a silvo feel. I don't have that 20 to 25 foot between every tree, but there's some sufficient shade. The negatives are they compact it, they get it muddier quicker, all the things that we've talked about. But a big negative with silvo pastures is that the production of grass, the poundage of grass is less. So it's less in these areas because trees steal the nutrients and trees take the water up. So if you don't get enough rain, your silvo pastures will produce less poundage of grass than your actual open pastures. But for me, if they can graze to my open pastures on either side and come back into the silvo, I get better daily gains. And so it's a give and take on how much of your land is silvo versus how much is higher production pasture. Your second option for shade is obviously back up at your barn. So we could take them back up there. We have been out of there since mid-March, beginning of April. Grass is looking good. We could go back and let them back graze back into the barn where they were for the winter, at least get them out of the sun. It is on concrete, so it's cool. Put down a few inches of wood chips, and that's an option for us. It's not our best option that we currently have here, so we don't do that. But if that's your case and you don't have anything else like that, you could do that as far as adding shade. The negative there would be the extra barn maintenance, the extra bedding, whatever it would be to keep that area up there clean. And I like to have that land rest as much as possible because we just beat it up so much during the winter. And our third option is our shade structure. So we have built a mobile shade structure here. This is a 20 by 40 mobile shade structure. It's on a heavy duty running gear frame. Used to be an anhydrous ammonia tank, if you're familiar with that. It does have some water tanks that we used originally when we built the trailer because there was parts of our farm at that point that did not have water. No longer use those, haven't taken them off yet, got plans. You can see there's some fly tape on there. We tend to put fly tape up on those tanks, keeps them off, but it's also our mineral trailer. So those wood boxes is all of our mineral bins. The con is obviously you gotta build one of these or buy one if you can. I've never seen one bought, but there's got to be somebody out there that sells something similar. There's lots of different types of shade structures, mobile wise. You don't have to have it as big as this if you have less cattle, obviously. If you have more cattle than us, so we've had around 30 head around this one trailer, and it's not really big enough. 20 by 40 is not really big enough for 30 head, and they really cram in, right? We've even had little calves get jammed underneath there and kind of get scratched up a little bit if we scare them to get them out. When it's time to move, we kind of have to shoo them away. And I will show you some of the impact from one day. And so you're getting impact around this because the cattle want to be under it. And so this is one day of impact, which is mainly a lot of manure and urine in this area. Now the pro is you could move this where you have bad pastures and they would drop that manure. But the negative is if you have even pastures, you're dropping a lot of it here. Now, when it rains, it does change that impact. And I'll show you a spot over here in the pasture where it rained during the night, and that day they over beat up the area. So this is where it was, and you can kind of tell here, we got like 2 inches that day, and it's beat up this area. Now, you got to move it every day. So if you're not a daily mover, a shade structure will hinder you. You should be moving it every day or you'll get this. Now we do have a total video on making this and I walk through it, so I won't talk a lot about it, but it is nice if you're gonna invest in something like this that it has multiple purposes. So it's fly catchment, it's mineral, and it's shade. We don't use it all year long, but it's been very useful to us. And obviously now that we have them in the woods, we're gonna be bush hogging this pasture tonight and moving this off. It'll just sit unused. We don't like to have them without mineral for more than 2 or 3 days. So in a few days when I move them to another paddock, they'll come back to this. So ultimately there's some different ways. There's pros and cons with each way. Each thing that we do here has cons. It causes us work. It causes different impacts that we don't like, all the things that we've talked about. But ultimately, I would say, like I said in the beginning of the video, yes, you need shade if you're looking to maintain daily weight gains. It does help with that. It does help with other things as far as young calves. If you're having calves and then have a heat wave, it can protect them. It does help if this is your breeding season. So right now we like to put the bull in June 15th, kind of, or towards the end of June. So if they're super hot and they're not up and moving and they're not breeding, you could miss one if you have a heat wave like that. Whereas with shade, they're more likely to take. So there are some advantages to having shade available. So we like it. We think it's necessary. It is not necessary to survive, remember, and you're not inhumane if you don't have it, but it is one thing that is very good to have. Silvopastures, especially if you have some wooded area on your farm, slowly start chipping that away. Slowly start cutting some trees down. You don't have to remove the stumps, cut them off around 3 or 4 feet. They'll scratch on them. Get the briars out of there. Let the cattle go in there and clear, but search for those hazardous trees. So in our area, it's cherry. Get with somebody in your area. Figure out, is there any tree in there that I have to get rid of because the leaves are hazardous to our cattle? We've talked about that in some of our other videos. And then just slowly, every year, if you can add a 1/4 acre a year, eventually you get 10 or 12 acres, and that's kind of what we have. And you build some little nice areas for the heat waves in your time around your area, and you can continue to have good daily gains. The cows, since I've been out, are already back up and eating again, even though it's right now 98 degrees, and a week and a half ago, it was 65 degrees. One last decision piece you're gonna have as you build silvopastures, as you build shaded areas for your cattle, is when you take them into it. So I had segregated all this off, and I'm like mid-July through mid-August is when I like to use this, and you can tell the grass is thick. This has been grazed once. We grazed it in the early spring just to kind of knock it down, but it's gone to seed, it's got thick, and we're just kind of saving it for them, stockpiling it for them for the heat. So when do I take them in there? Because when I graze, it's gonna take a good 60 days for me to come back to have good growth back on that so that they'll actually graze on that grass. And if I leave them in there too long, they're gonna over impact. So that's a give and take. We chose, here it is towards the end of June, to go ahead and use this is probably an acre, acre and a half, this little teeny section just for these 3 or 4 days. We're having this heat wave, it's supposed to rain and die back down. We'll go back out to pastures. So we're just kind of sectioning off pieces and taking pieces as we need it with the heat, and saving this for when we know the hottest time of our year is gonna be. So that would be another con. That's another thing that you have to now plan. It's another strategy. It's another, where do you move them? How do you get them close? Do you have to deal with them and all that kind of stuff? Do you have water close to your silvo areas? Fortunately for us, we do. It's just part of the planning, but it does help us maintain that average daily gain, getting the fattest, nicest, healthiest cattle as quickly as we possibly can to produce as much beef as we can on our farm. Well, there you have it. Comment down below. Let me know what you think. Am I totally wrong? Have you seen studies that say something different than what I'm saying to folks? I try to give both sides and be pros and cons about things in all my videos. Let me know. Let me know what your thoughts are on, do cattle need shade? Do you need to provide it as a farmer, as a homesteader? Also, comment down below, like and subscribe. It does help our channel. Even if it's just a quick thumbs up, it does rank our videos higher. It does help us as we build. Share us on Facebook. Thank you so much for watching. Check out the clothing if you're interested in something like that. You can choose other brands. I don't make anything on this stuff, or if I do, it's very small from Amazon. But the links are down there, and all of the description stuff, other videos will be down there. I will put that video to that shade structure down there. If you want to check that video out, it'll be down in the description. Well, it's time to get on the bush hog. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time.